If having a fake Mrs. Sterling is the price to pay to save my father's legacy, then let me go to hell with that lie. Dylan Sterling's desperate declaration, uttered in a fit of rage and helplessness under pressure from Richard Thorne just days ago, was now like a cruel curse coming true right in the middle of Sterling Automotive's sanctuary of power. The hell he had envisioned for having to accept such a clumsy performance probably did not include this extraordinary scene. The entire board of directors, people known for their iron will and pride, stood up as if to welcome a real queen, when the fake wife he had been forced to accept took her first steps into the conference room. The cold light from the LED ceiling lights fell on the long, polished mahogany table, reflecting the most powerful faces in Detroit, who were stunned, while the air was thick with a stunned silence. The atmosphere in Sterling Automotive's boardroom at its Detroit, Michigan headquarters was as tense as a frayed string. Cold light from rows of recessed LEDs illuminated a long, polished mahogany table, where the company's most powerful figures were gathered in intense concentration. This was the annual shareholder meeting, a crucial event for many strategic issues, not least the billion-dollar investment in electric vehicles and autonomous driving technology that 46-year-old CEO Dylan Sterling was pushing with all his might. Dylan, tall and elegant, but somewhat weary of a man who has been through too much, had just finished his passionate presentation. He faced a barrage of questions, especially from Victoria Davenport, a shrewd and ambitious board member who had always been unfriendly to his bold plans. After Dylan finished answering the last question, Richard Thorne, chairman of the board of directors, a white-haired man with an authoritative demeanor, an old friend of Dylan's father, spoke up. His voice was gentle, but could not hide the hidden meaning. "Thank you, Dylan. Your plan is indeed very ambitious and groundbreaking. However, shareholders and we on the board of directors always want to see stability, not only in long-term business strategy, but also in the top leader. A solid backing, a stable family, sir, is always a big plus in the eyes of investors." Thorne's words were like a needle pricking the already tense air. Dylan tried to keep his face neutral, but he knew exactly what Thorne was referring to: his unstable singleness after a messy divorce 3 years ago. Just then, there was a soft knock on the door, and the heavy oak door to the conference room slowly opened. All eyes turned curiously, and somewhat annoyed at the interruption, to the door. James Jim O'Connell, Sterling Automotive's chief legal officer and Dylan's close friend, entered. Following him was a woman. And that was the moment everything seemed to stop. Aria Rossi entered the room. She was about 38 or 40 years old. She was not wearing the gorgeous evening gowns or luxury brands that were usually worn by women in this high society. Instead, she wore a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that hugged her well-proportioned figure, showing off her hidden power and professionalism. Her jet black hair was neatly tied back in a low bun at the nape of her neck, revealing her elegant neck. Her face was lightly made up, but her hazel eyes shone with sharpness, intelligence, and something formidable. She exuded a calm confidence, an unusual calmness in this tense atmosphere. As Aria Rossi took long, steady strides into the center of the conference room toward Dylan's desk, the unexpected happened. Mr. Harrison, a senior board member who had been a prominent federal judge before retiring and entering the business world, paused, his aged eyes flashing with utter surprise. Then, as if by reflex, he slowly rose to his feet. Next came Ms. Albright, another veteran attorney. Then the others, the heavyweights of Detroit's legal and business world. Within seconds, almost the entire board, including an equally astonished Richard Thorne, and even a tight-lipped Victoria Davenport, stood to greet the woman who had just entered. Absolute silence fell over the enormous conference room, broken only by the light, steady sound of Aria's high heels tapping against the polished marble floor, a sound that seemed to carry 1,000 pounds of weight. Dylan Sterling was stunned, completely shocked. He had asked Jim to find a woman who looked stable, intellectual, and knew how to smile to act as his wife for a few hours of this meeting, to smooth over Thorne's insinuations. He had not had time to research her background, that the entire board of directors, the most powerful and proud people in this city, people to whom he sometimes had to choose his words, would stand up to welcome his fake wife was beyond imagination. Who was she who could have caused such an extraordinary reaction? Arya Rossi paused before the chairman's table, smiling softly, a professional smile that was not at all artificial. She nodded to the board of directors, then turned to Dylan, placing her slender but steady hand gently on his arm. "Sorry to interrupt your important meeting." Her voice was deep, clear, and carried undeniable authority. "I'm Arya Rossi, Dylan's wife. I just wanted to stop by to give him moral support during a stressful day at work." The conference room was still filled with surprise and big questions. Dylan and Arya stood side by side, an unlikely power couple that had just formed before everyone's eyes. Richard Thorne looked at Arya with a scrutinizing gaze, trying to search his memory for where he had seen this woman before. Victoria Davenport could not hide the irritation and a little confusion on her usually cold face. The play had begun, but according to a script that no one, including Dylan, could have foreseen. A week before that fateful shareholder meeting, the atmosphere in Dylan Sterling's plush office was a stark contrast. It was suffocating with pressure and a sense of helplessness. "Dylan, you have to understand," Richard Thorne said in a private conversation, his voice mild but not without impatience. "The major shareholders, especially those of the older generation like me, need absolute confidence in the person at the helm of Sterling Automotive. Your electric car plan is bold, but it also carries risks. A single CEO your age, who just went through a highly publicized divorce 3 years ago, is not the ideal image for them to place their trust in. You need a solid backing, a stable family to demonstrate your maturity and responsibility." Thorne hinted that his support, and that of some other conservative board members, for the electric car plan could be shaken if Dylan did not take a serious look at his personal life. The pressure wasn't just coming from Thorne. Victoria Davenport, a smart, sharp, but ambitious woman, was secretly allying with several other board members who were also skeptical of Dylan's expensive electric car project. She was doing everything she could to thwart the plan, arguing that it was too risky and could hurt the company's short-term profits. And of course, Victoria wasn't above exploiting Dylan's weaknesses in his personal life to undermine his credibility. Dylan knew that developing electric vehicles and autonomous driving technology was Sterling Automotive's lifeblood. The only way the company could compete in the new technological era. He couldn't let personal problems or old prejudices get in the way of his strategic vision. In desperation, he called Jim O'Connell, his college friend and now trusted corporate legal manager. "Jim, I need your help with something. Something a little unusual." Jim O'Connell knew Arya Rossi by more than just reputation. Years ago, when Arya was a rising star in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, known for her sharp wit, steely rhetoric, and near-perfect conviction rate, Jim, then working for a private law firm, had faced her several times in complex civil cases involving large corporations. Despite being on opposite sides of the aisle, Jim had always been in awe of Arya's talent, integrity, and uncompromising courage. He also knew that, about 2 years ago, Arya had abruptly quit her job at the height of her career to devote time to caring for her ailing father. After her father's death a few months earlier, Arya had been in a transition phase, looking for a new direction, perhaps opening her own law practice or becoming a senior strategy consultant. A bold idea suddenly occurred to Jim. Arya Rossi could be the solution to Dylan's problem. Jim found Arya at the Daily Grind, a quiet little coffee shop downtown where he knew she frequented to read and work on her laptop. After a few pleasantries, Jim got straight to the point. He explained Dylan's dilemma, without, of course, going into all the details of Sterling Automotive's complex internal conflicts, focusing on Dylan's need for a trusted partner to appear with him at a crucial shareholder meeting in order to create a more stable and trustworthy image. He offered a hefty fee, $75,000, for an appearance that would last only a few hours. Arya listened, her delicate brows furrowing slightly. At first, she thought it was a joke or something shady, not in line with the principles she had always adhered to. She was not the type to take on acting jobs for money. But when Jim emphasized that this appearance could help a good person, a talented and caring CEO like Dylan Sterling, overcome a temporary difficult situation, and that this could affect the future of a large corporation and thousands of employees, Arya began to consider, She was also a little curious about Dylan Sterling, a name that often appeared in the business press with ambitious plans for reform. And honestly, the money was not small. It could give her more time and comfort to think carefully about the next step in her career. "I will help him, Jim," Arya said after a moment of silence, her voice maintaining its usual calm. "But on one condition, I need to know a little more about the true context of this meeting, about the key figures I will be dealing with. And I will act in whatever way I deem most appropriate to achieve your goals, as long as it does not violate the law or my own moral principles." Dylan and Arya first met that afternoon in Jim's private office, just one day before the shareholders' meeting. Dylan was surprised, even a little surprised, by Arya's strong appearance and her sharp, intelligent demeanor. He had expected Jim to find a woman who was good-looking, polite, and knew how to smile at the right time. Arya Rossi was something else entirely. Dylan briefly explained the pressure from Richard Thorne and the importance of projecting a stable family image at the upcoming meeting. He didn't go into detail about Victoria Davenport's machinations or the complex conflicts within the board of directors. He simply needed Arya Rossi to play the role of Arya Sterling, his quiet but supportive wife, for a few hours. Arya listened intently, her intelligent eyes not missing a single detail of Dylan's face or gestures. She asked a few pointed questions about the composition of the board of directors, about the key figures, about the issues that might be discussed. Dylan began to feel that this woman was not simple, that she was not an ordinary hired actress that he could easily manipulate. They didn't sign any complicated contracts. There was just a verbal agreement. Based on the trust they both had in Jim O'Connell, Arya received a small amount of cash up front, which she called costume and supplies. That evening, Arya spent more than just picking out the right outfit for her role. With her experience and sharp skills as a former prosecutor, she spent the rest of the day doing in-depth research on Sterling Automotive, its history, its finances, its challenges, and especially Dylan Sterling's ambitious electric vehicle development plan. She also researched each member of the board of directors, their backgrounds, their public and industry connections, and their past involvements. She used online search engines, public databases, and even a few old relationships in the legal and press circles to grasp the situation as quickly and comprehensively as possible. By the end of the night, Arya had a pretty clear picture of what was really going on inside Sterling Automotive. She realized the strategic importance of the electric car plan Dylan was trying to protect, and the hidden forces that were trying to stop him. She saw that there was a real power struggle going on, and Dylan Sterling was in the middle of it. This made her role suddenly more meaningful than just a job for money. The surprise appearance of Mrs. Sterling and the stunned reaction of the entire board of directors at the shareholders' meeting became the hottest topic of conversation within Sterling Automotive and quickly spread throughout the Detroit business community for days afterward. Who was Arya Rossi? Why did such powerful and prominent figures stand up to greet her with such formality? These questions hung in the air, creating a wave of curiosity and endless speculation. Dylan, in his office, was still a little dazed but also undeniably relieved. Richard Thorne's pressure seemed to have lessened considerably. He no longer mentioned the strong support and instead spoke to Dylan with a more respectful tone. Victoria Davenport, on the other hand, was clearly irritated and secretly had someone investigate Arya Rossi's true identity. Once the meeting ended and the shareholders had left, Dylan had a private conversation with Arya in his office. He sincerely thanked her for her beyond expectations help. "Ms. Rossi, I really don't know what to say. Your appearance, it was truly extraordinary. Can you tell me what your secret is?" Arya just smiled softly, a smile that remained professional but a little mysterious. "Just a few old acquaintances in the legal and business world. Mr. Sterling, sometimes the past has its unexpected benefits." She didn't reveal anything more about her relationships, keeping enough distance to keep Dylan from probing further. However, their drama was not over yet. A few days later, Richard Thorne, under the pretext of finding out more about Dylan's partner, invited the Sterlings to his home for dinner. Dylan, although reluctant, could not refuse this testing invitation. He had to ask for Arya's help once again, and she, after some hesitation, agreed to continue her role. For an additional fee, The dinner at the Thorne family's luxurious mansion was initially tense, but Arya, with her intelligence, charm, and surprisingly deep knowledge of a wide range of subjects, from macroeconomics and international politics to contemporary art and even fine wines, quickly took control of the situation. Not only did she respond fluently and incisively to Richard Thorne's probing questions, but she also endeared herself to Mrs. Thorne, a woman known for being fastidious and meticulous, and enjoyed her stories. Dylan sat beside her, watching Arya. He was increasingly impressed with her. He saw in her an inner strength, a sharp intellect, and a bravery that he had never seen in his ex-wife or any other woman he had ever known. At times, when Thorne deliberately asked sensitive questions about Sterling Automotive's business strategy, Arya, as Mrs. Sterling, who was deeply interested in her husband's work, skillfully steered the conversation in another direction, while making some profound and unexpected observations about the market that surprised and somewhat intimidated Richard Thorne. Meanwhile, Victoria Davenport was still determined to bring Dylan down. She had Arya Rossi's past thoroughly investigated and eventually discovered that she had left the district attorney's office. Victoria tried to distort this information, insinuating that Arya was fired due to poor performance, or was involved in some scandal that forced her to leave. Victoria accidentally leaked this distorted information to a corporate gossip columnist, hoping to create a new scandal targeting Dylan Sterling, further undermining his credibility ahead of the upcoming important board of directors decisions. False rumors began to appear on a few small financial blogs and spread on social media. Does the new wife of Sterling Automotive CEO have a questionable past? Who is the mysterious woman next to Dylan Sterling? When these rumors began to spread and threaten to damage the company's image, Dylan, instead of trying to cut off Arya to protect himself like many people might have done, took an unexpected action. He proactively asked Jim O'Connell to use all legal means necessary to quell those baseless rumors and protect Arya Rossi's reputation. "She helped me out of a very difficult situation, Jim," Dylan told his best friend, his voice full of determination. "I can't let her be harmed or misunderstood because of this." Arya learned about Dylan's actions from Jim. She was really surprised and couldn't hide her emotion. She didn't expect a powerful CEO, who was facing so much pressure like Dylan, to act so chivalrously for a fake wife like her. After that incident, Dylan and Arya's relationship began to change subtly. They met and talked more privately, not just about the role or the problems of Sterling Automotive. Dylan was curious about Arya's challenging old job, about the real reasons why she decided to give up a career at the peak. Arya, feeling Dylan's sincerity and a bit of harmony, gradually opened up. She shared with him about her late father, whom she loved dearly, about the terrible pressures and the noble ideals she had pursued when she was a prosecutor. Dylan finds himself increasingly drawn to Arya's intelligence, strength, integrity, and vulnerability beneath her tough, resilient exterior. In turn, Arya begins to see Dylan Sterling as more than just a cold, powerful, and ambitious CEO, but a responsible, visionary man who is facing pressure from all sides. A mutual understanding and respect begins to grow between them. One weekend evening, Dylan invited Arya Still as Mrs. Sterling to attend an important charity gala for the Detroit auto industry. This was a big event, gathering many important figures in business, politics, and even the media. Arya appeared in an elegant sapphire-colored evening gown, the design simple but sophisticated, highlighting her fair skin and well-proportioned figure. She did not wear much expensive jewelry, but still attracted all eyes, not only because of her noble beauty, but also because of her confident, attractive demeanor and intelligent communication skills. She easily integrated into conversations with CEOs of rival corporations, potential investors, and even influential politicians, demonstrating a deep understanding of the industry and current affairs. Dylan kept his eyes on her all evening. He felt a strange pride and an inexplicable honor at her side. He saw how his business partners, who were known for being difficult and arrogant, had to show respect and listen when Arya spoke. During the routine dance part of the show, their hands touched, their eyes met. An undeniable vibration, a warm current ran through both of them. They talked, laughed, no longer feeling awkward like people acting, but like two soulmates truly getting to know and discover each other. Victoria Davenport was also present at the party, and she could not help but see the growing bond between Dylan and his mystery wife. Victoria's hateful and jealous gaze only increased her determination to find some weakness to defeat them both. The real storm hit Sterling Automotive on a gray Monday morning. A top-secret document containing the company's entire strategy for developing its next-generation electric vehicle, including preliminary designs, detailed specifications, and launch plans, was unexpectedly leaked to Innovate Motors, a direct competitor that was eager to gain a share of the electric vehicle market. This was a devastating blow, potentially ruining the entire plan that Dylan and his team had been working on for the past 2 years, and causing financial losses estimated to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars if Innovate Motors had launched a similar product before Sterling Automotive. As soon as the news spread internally, the company's shares began to show signs of a serious decline on the stock market. Suspicion immediately fell on a small group of people who had access to this secret document, and Victoria Davenport, like a shark smelling blood, did not miss the opportunity. She quickly pointed the finger at the only outsider with the closest access to Dylan Sterling, Aria Rossi. Victoria hinted in informal meetings that Aria, with her unscrupulous past, was most likely an industrial spy, or at least had accidentally leaked important information due to carelessness. The board of directors called an emergency meeting immediately. Richard Thorne, under pressure from major shareholders and fear of the collapse of an empire, put enormous pressure on Dylan. He demanded that Dylan find the mole in the shortest possible time and take full responsibility for this serious incident. "Dylan, I warned you about stability," Thorne growled, frustration evident on his face. Dylan was in a dilemma. Deep down, he believed Aria was innocent. He couldn't imagine a smart, upright, and self-respecting woman like her doing something so despicable. But he had no evidence to back her up. While Victoria Davenport kept giving false clues and malicious insinuations to point all suspicions at Aria, Dylan's faith began to waver under the immense pressure. Aria Rossi, more than anyone, understood the dangerous situation that she and Dylan were facing. She knew she was under suspicion, being made a scapegoat. But instead of panicking or trying to make a weak defense, her instincts as a seasoned prosecutor took over. She decided not to sit still and wait for fate. She went to Dylan, looked him straight in the eye, her voice calm but determined. "Dylan, I know the situation is bad, but please believe me this one more time. I am innocent, and I will find the truth. Find the person who harmed both you and me." Without waiting for Dylan's approval, Aria sprang into action. She used all her investigative skills, evidence analysis, and old network from her time at the district attorney's office to secretly investigate the leak. Jim O'Connell, who had full faith in Aria's integrity and abilities, threw himself into supporting her, providing all the necessary information and resources from the company in a discreet manner. After sleepless nights and days piecing together every little clue, from computer system logs, suspicious emails, and internal rumors, Aria discovered important clues that led to a junior IT employee named Mark Jenkins, who worked in Victoria Davenport's department. Jenkins had recently been spending money that was far above his salary, and system logs showed that he had repeatedly accessed confidential documents about electric vehicles at times unrelated to his work. The second emergency board meeting was even more tense than the first. Victoria Davenport, with the confidence of a sure winner, was eloquently accusing Dylan Sterling of poor management, incompetence in staff control, and especially putting trust in the wrong person, bringing in a fox to guard the house, a clear reference to Aria. Just as Victoria was speaking, the door to the conference room opened again. This time, Aria Rossi walked in without being invited or led. She still maintained her calm, confident demeanor, but her eyes had the sharpness of a warrior about to enter a duel. "Sorry to interrupt, ladies and gentlemen," Aria said, her voice echoing throughout the room. "I would like to present some information directly related to the recent leak of classified documents." Richard Thorne, though a little surprised, nodded in agreement. And then, with the air of a prosecutor at the arraignment, Aria Rossi slowly unraveled the entire conspiracy. She logically and clearly presented each piece of evidence she had collected from Mark Jenkins' unusual browsing history, to suspicious financial transactions in his wife's name, to encrypted emails that Jenkins had sent to an unknown address. The climax comes when Arya plays a recording that Jim O'Connell had cleverly and legally obtained during a chance conversation with Jenkins a few days earlier. In the recording, Mark Jenkins, under pressure and fear, stammers out an admission that he had leaked confidential information about electric vehicles to an Innovate Motors representative. And even more shockingly, Jenkins reveals that he was acting on the orders of an unseen senior manager at Sterling Automotive, who had promised him a large sum of money and a higher position if Dylan Sterling's plan failed and Dylan was ousted by the board of directors. Every sign, every clue, however indirect, pointed directly to Victoria Davenport. Victoria Davenport's face was pale, drained of blood. She stammered to protest, but she couldn't speak in the face of Arya's clear evidence and her strong presentation. The other board members were stunned and bewildered. Richard Thorne looked at Arya with a completely different gaze, a gaze that was a mixture of surprise, admiration, and even a little shame for ever doubting her. And then, the final surprise of the play arrived. The door to the conference room opened once more. This time, the person who entered was Chief Prosecutor Robert Miller, Arya's former boss and mentor whom she greatly respected, along with two plainclothes investigators. "Sorry to interrupt your meeting, Mr. Miller said, his voice stern, but we have warrants for the arrest of Ms. Victoria Davenport and Mr. Mark Jenkins for industrial espionage, aiding and abetting a competitor, and willful sabotage of Sterling Automotive. As it turned out, as soon as she had enough preliminary but solid evidence, Arya secretly contacted and reported the whole case to Chief Prosecutor Robert Miller, and he, with absolute trust in the ability and integrity of his former excellent student, quickly took action. The storm had finally passed. Victoria Davenport and Mark Jenkins were arrested in the boardroom. The industrial espionage scandal at Sterling Automotive was quickly exposed, and the company's reputation, though shaken, was quickly restored by its transparency and decisive handling of the crisis. Sterling Automotive was saved from potential disaster, and Dylan Sterling's electric vehicle development plans no longer faced any internal resistance. As soon as the investigators left, Dylan found Arya. He stood before her, the woman who had just saved his career and reputation, unable to say anything more than a clumsy thank you and a heartfelt admiration. "Arya, you saved the company, and you saved me too. I don't know what to do." Arya smiled slightly, a rare smile that showed a hint of tenderness after the recent tension. "I was just doing what a good citizen, and perhaps a friend, should do." Dylan took her hand, a feeling of warmth and trust spreading. "Arya, I don't want you to be just my friend. What's happened between us all this time? It's not just a contract, a temporary help. I've realized I've fallen in love with you. Arya Rossi. Love your intelligence, your courage, your integrity, and your strength. Can you give this somewhat conservative, divorced, and perhaps boring man a chance?" Arya looked deep into Dylan's blue eyes, seeing sincerity, a little hurt from the past, and a desperate hope. She smiled, a bright smile this time, without any defenses. "Dylan Sterling, you are not boring at all. And yes, I will give you a chance. A real chance." After the incident, Richard Thorne publicly apologized to Dylan Sterling in front of the entire board of directors for the unnecessary pressure he had caused. He also lavished praise on Arya Rossi's extraordinary talent and courage. From a skeptic, Thorne became Dylan's most enthusiastic supporter of the electric vehicle development plan. Sterling Automotive, after removing the cancerous tumor that was Victoria Davenport, became more united and focused on its strategic goals. The company quickly regained its growth momentum. Arya Rossi, after careful consideration, decided not to return to the prosecutorial path. Instead, she opened her own legal consulting and corporate strategy firm, with Sterling Automotive as her first and foremost major client. She also accepted an offer to teach part-time at a prestigious university in Detroit's law school, passing on her knowledge and experience to a younger generation of lawyers. Dylan Sterling and Aria Rossi's wedding a few months later was not a big, flashy affair, but a small, intimate ceremony that was no less solemn and meaningful. The ceremony took place in a picturesque garden on the outskirts of the city, attended by their closest friends. Family Dylan's mother and sister flew in from California, and a few key members of the Sterling Automotive Board of Directors, people who now held Aria in special esteem and admiration. At the wedding reception, Richard Thorne raised his glass to celebrate, "To Dylan, a lucky man who has found not only a wonderful life partner, but also a true CEO for his heart, and to Aria, an extraordinary woman who can make the entire Sterling Automotive Board of Directors stand up and greet us, not just once, but forever." 1 year later, Dylan and Aria are enjoying a happy and fulfilling married life. They are not only husband and wife, but also soulmates, trusted partners, always supporting and inspiring each other in both their careers and personal lives. They are truly a power couple, admired by the entire Detroit business community. Sterling Automotive, under Dylan's skillful leadership and the astute strategic advice from Aria's company, has successfully launched a new generation of electric vehicles, creating a huge buzz in the global market and affirming the group's pioneering position in the green technology era. It's a beautiful autumn afternoon in Michigan. Dylan and Aria are test driving Sterling Automotive's newest electric car on a winding road lined with maple trees in their golden and red leaves. They stop at a hilltop viewpoint, looking down at the scenic valley below. Dylan turned to look at Aria, the woman of his life, smiling happily. "Who would have thought, honey, a fateful shareholders meeting, an unwilling fake wife contract, could bring me the most wonderful woman in the world?" He gently stroked her soft sideburns. "I remember that moment very clearly, when the entire board of directors stood up. That time, they stood up because you were former district attorney Aria Rossi, a name that everyone feared. Now, if there is a meeting, I believe they will stand up because you are Aria Sterling, my beloved wife, and the smartest, strongest, and most wonderful woman I have ever known." Aria smiled, her smile as bright as the autumn sunshine. She leaned her head on Dylan's shoulder, fully enjoying this moment of peace and complete happiness. They had found each other amidst the storms, the conspiracies and the challenges, and their love, built on the foundation of respect, trust, and the harmony of two strong souls, was the most vivid proof of the power of truth, justice, and true love. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you love this story, don't forget to click like to support the channel. Share this story with family and friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories.